everybody's watching the coronation or something.
Yeah, everybody's watching the, that's okay, welcome, it's 9:01, I just need a book. And Bella, you're so far away over there.
Tell you what's happening.
Yeah.
Derek has been away so long that people won't come anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm positive. I mean, no, I'm not positive.
Yeah.
I just have 100%.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hear.
Well,
Yeah, which hospital
I
are you in?
understand that.
Rishon?
Yeah, I understand that.
Was it terrible? Was it okay?
Oh, this is a bar mitzvah of Greengrass's son. Isn't it? Today? I think so. Aren't you going?
No, I have relatives and I called her and told her I couldn't make it.
Oh, you have relatives there. Who's in your town?
Lorraine's brother
Yeah.
and sister. I mean, we're very close to them.
Yeah.
They hadn't been here in a long time.
Oh, well, that's nice. Where are they, where are they, where are they living?
New Orleans. That's where Lorraine's from.
Oh. I love New Orleans. I've been there a number of times. I love every time I go. I love the music more than anything.
Well, they are ingrained in Louisiana. And then his father moved here from Russia.
Oh, wow. My grandparents moved from Russia to Boston.
Mine moved from Russia to my father's parents moved to New Brunswick, New Jersey, where he was a dairy farmer and a kosher butcher. My father moved to, parents moved to Philadelphia.
How did he mix the milk and the meat?
Okay, good
Different
morning.
place. Different
Boker
meal.
Tov. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm going to do like Rabbi Barris. He keeps his phone out for messages. Okay. We had a lot of stuff this morning.
A lot of stuff.
Yes, I was with.
Always a lot of stuff.
Oh, these in the back, okay? Okay, thank you.
Leave them on top of the books there.
Here, Nancy, I have some more. I think we printed 30. Okay. Where everybody is. We have one. We have our two microphones. Okay. So let's see. Taking attendance. Most of you are sitting in the right seat. To Ed and Jeff and Judy who are in Israel with me, and Rabbi Barris, welcome home. I'm glad everybody's safe.
Yes.
I brought my children gifts, even though they don't really need anything. But that has never stopped me before.
I got my grandkids a gift. I got my grandson, we were in Turkey.
Oh, that's right. You went.
We brought up the Sultan out. He loves to wear costumes.
And you brought him a sultan. Nice.
He'll cherish that when he turns older.
Yeah. So let's begin with our Remembering It's Shabbat prayer in song. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat la'asot et ha-shabbat ledorotam berit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat la'asot et ha-shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael b'nei ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. Amen. L'chaim. So before our blessing, I see that our red lights are not on. Red lights not on mean we're not being recorded. So let's see if I have. Hi, I'm teaching. Hi, I'm teaching right now, Torah study. Torah study in the chapel. It doesn't look like we have live stream. Paul, will you check on the live stream, see if we're live streaming? I don't think we are. Thank you. Paul goes online and sees something or nothing.
Is there somebody here?
Nope. It's somewhere, it's all remote, far, far away. But I check with our marketing person. Okay. I want to thank Ed Schwartz for helping me shop in Israel a little bit for the cantor. She wore her beautiful talit last night, and there's Ed, bought a beautiful talit. Oh, I can't wait to, oh, it's so much fun. I did more than shopping, although I talked about shopping twice. And you have new kippah. And I have a new talit, but I wore it last night. So don't say, all right, another thing I'm going to be handing out before we say the blessing for Torah, while I still have everybody's attention. Oh, we are? Okay. All right, stop it. So I don't know why. That is so weird. All right, let me change.
There's a delay.
Okay, it is on, but I don't.
She's still thanking Ed Schwartz.
Okay.
There's someone there, the rest is when there's a blooper.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay. You didn't see last night?
I watched, but it didn't start right away.
Oh, okay. 13, okay. Well, it's 9:09. Let's see. The lights go on. So I know I send it out in the Minyan Minutes, if those of you who get it, which are most of you, but I want to make you aware, traveling with a group is so much fun, especially with a group from the temple. Not only do you create new communities together, but everything you see, everything Jewish that you see or not, has now more multiple layers with everybody's stories and everybody's personalities into what we're seeing and what we're doing and everyone's histories. So I am encouraging people to join me on Temple Beth Am's Jewish Heritage River Cruise up the Danube. Some of you have done it. Budapest, to the end with an add-on in Prague if you are interested. So we start in Budapest, Vienna, all those interesting places. And we will have, for 4 Jewish sites, private Temple Beth Am touring. This is Amma Waterways. It's luxurious enough. It is actually one of the top lines, so nobody should complain about that. So I'm going to hand some of these out. Anybody think I'm going to put them here? Oh, I'll hand them out because I'm a little.
We've done this.
You've done it before. Okay. I know a lot of people have done. Here, you can take a look at it and see if you know other friends who may want to go. we have about 20, careful, we have about 20 people signed up already. You can pass those behind you, please, Jeff. The Farajis are coming. So we're going to have a lot of fun. Thank you. So, no heavy bags to hit yourself in the face. You did the Rhine, but this is the Danube. I'll just leave you guys have one. Okay. We're having an informational meeting June 13th. Just in case you think you might be interested, if you haven't done the Danube yet. It's so funny how we say, I've done something. I've done this. Checked it off our list. All right, now we're ready to study Torah. Join me in the blessing, please. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. So we are in Leviticus, Parashat Emor, and we're going to be looking at chapter 24. Chapter 24. The seventh Aliyah, correct, page 937. Okay. So, before we start, this is the coronation chapter. Yeah, skipping some of the coronation. We're getting to the trouble. So, the section that we're reading has to do with, let's say, troublemakers. So the first part is the blasphemer. Now, I never know, do we say blasphemer or blasphemer? Blasphemer is the correct way? Blasphemer? Blasphemer? Sounds weird, but okay. Murderer, I can say. So, let's see. I was playing with this yesterday, working on figuring this out. Sometimes we come in here with an exact direction of where we want to go and what we want you to know. Lots of times I will come in here with, well, questions we're going to share together. That's where we sort of are today. Okay. Here. So I was playing with this chart last night while I was watching after services the new matchmaking show, Jewish Matchmaking. Now you may have enjoyed Indian matchmaking on Netflix, but now there's Jewish matchmaking, and it is not frivolous. At least the episode I watched. She says the matchmaker some interesting things. She is not a stereotype of anybody, and it's good. If you like watching these things, if you have, like some of us, a bunch of daughters who aren't married, Jeff, the Farajis, me, you're really interested in these matchmaking shows. So Jewish matchmaking on Netflix is a good one. I did not see, what was the diamond ones called, Paul? The rough diamonds. I haven't seen that yet. Okay, so let's look. We're going to start reading from chapter 24. Let's see, try verse 11 through, it's on the bottom from verse 10 until, we're going to read through 23. So everybody, we'll take a couple of verses, like a little paragraph, and then you'll pass the microphone. Starting at page 937. We're not doing with the first 10 verses. We'll start at verse 10.
11.
Start at 10. I talked about 11, but let's start at 10.
There came out among the Israelites one whose mother was Israelite and whose father was Egyptian. And a fight broke out in the camp between that half-Israelite and a certain Israelite. The son of the Israelite woman pronounced the name in blasphemy, and he was brought to Moses. Now his mother's name was Shlomith, daughter of Dibri of the tribe of Dan. And he was placed in custody until the decision of the Lord should be made clear. to them.
Okay, next reader.
Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, remove the blasphemer to the outside of the camp, and all those who heard shall lean their hands upon his head. The entire assembly shall stone him.
Okay, so stop right there for a second. So we have a fight going on in the camp. Somebody uses the tetragrammaton, the name of God, which is a sin. People overhear him. They place their hands on him, and let's see, and he's going to be stoned, it looks like. Okay, thank you. 17. Oh no, where are we? 15.
And to the Israelite people speak thus: anyone who blasphemes his God shall bear his guilt. If he also pronounces the name Lord, he shall be put to death. The whole community shall stone him, stranger or citizen. If he has thus pronounced the name, he shall be put to death.
Okay, thank you. Pass on the mic somewhere. And now we have some of our famous parts of Tanakh. It's listed in a few different places.
Okay, verse 17.
17.
If anyone kills any human being, that person shall be put to death. One who kills a beast shall make restitution for it, life for life. If anyone maims another person, what was done shall be done in return. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The injury inflicted on a human being shall be inflicted in return. Shall I continue?
Yep.
One who kills a beast shall make restitution for it, but one who kills a human being shall be put to death. You shall have one standard for a stranger and citizen alike, for I, Adonai, am your God.
Last sentence.
Moses spoke thus to the Israelites, and they took the blasphemer outside the camp and pelted him with stones. The Israelites did as Adonai had commanded Moses.
Okay, so that's one of our famous sections, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. We're going to be looking first at the section of the blasphemer, and then, hey Eileen, and then we just already talked about you. Then we're going to talk about life for life. Ian, question?
Yeah, I mean, the people are now going to stone someone to death, and almost immediately it says those who kill a human being.
So Ian brings up the question of let's see. So we have killing versus murder. And under the topic of killing versus murder, we always have the topic of a just war. Okay, so killing versus murder, that's up there in our mind. Just war is also up there in our mind as soon as we talk about that. But hang on, that's the second part of our lesson. Yes?
It's the equality of it. I mean, you're going to get a death penalty if you kill somebody. You're also going to get a death penalty if you just say the name of the Lord.
Okay, so hang on. We're going to get death penalty if you just say God's name. Of course, it's one of the 10 Commandments. Don't do it. Or if we kill somebody. So let's go to the blasphemer first. Leviticus 24:12. Vayanichuhu bamishmar lifrosh lahem al pi Adonai. So we understand. Here's this guy. He's in a fight in the camp. He says, God damn it. He calls out God's name, and he was placed in custody until the decision of Adonai should be made clear to them. Let's look at my chart. So we have a crime, right? The crime is blasphemy. Where does it say who's going to be the judge in that case? Who's the judge? Well, Adonai, until the decision of Adonai should be made clear. So we have the judgment of God. And if we read further, we don't know what the punishment is yet at verse 12. But we've read, so we really know. So let's look at what Chizkuni says Who's reading next? Jeff, Ron, where are we going? We're Chizkuni on verse 12.
Yes. In order to receive instructions from the Lord on how to proceed, they assumed that the sinner had to be stoned to death, as it is evident from Leviticus 29. If stoning is the penalty for cursing one's parents, how could the penalty for cursing the Lord be more lenient? We have a rule that penalties cannot be based merely on our judgment, i.e. our logic, but most have been ordained from heaven.
Okay, so Bill asked, if it's a person's life or a person's life, how come it's a person's life just for cursing God? It's a person's life just for cursing parents, right? So we have the punishment. They're asking, what should it be? It's, as we read later, it's going to be stoning, but Chizkuni says, we think, this is like one of the main parts of the lesson. We think that punishment is given by us and our logic in these matters, but it's really ordained from God. So if there's a big discussion, which I did include because it was really, really, really complicated. So if there are false witnesses and other witnesses come and say, hey, these guys are false witnesses, they were lying, but that person that they accused, the false witnesses had already accused was put to death, the rabbis say that person must have been guilty anyway, because God would not let somebody be put to death who isn't guilty. So if somebody was accusing somebody incorrectly and they still were put to death, it had to have been the right one, right choice.
Is that the solution to the Holocaust?
Is that there is no solution to the Holocaust, because the Holocaust was evil perpetrated by evil people. And what?
Why isn't that here?
Why isn't, tell me.
Who did God direct to stone the person who took his name in vain? God didn't tell people, he told Moses, right?
Well, let's keep going. Yes, God tells Moses, this is the punishment. This is the punishment. But so lots of times when we think about murder and justice and God's hand in it, we naturally think of the worst catastrophe in the Jewish people, Shoah, Holocaust, and also, of course, the Inquisition and the other pogroms that happened. But I don't want us to confuse the biblical mind with modern history. And modern history, I mean from the Middle Ages on. Let's call that modern enough, right? It's not the ancients. Because here, the Torah is a document of revolution, and it's a document of detriment. Not detriment, but not the detriment, deterrence. So it's a revolution going on here, and it's a deterrence, same time. Ian, do you need a microphone to ask the question? Hang on.
Okay.
Where are we? Where is this microphone? It's the bottom.
I'm a movie buff, and I watch a lot of strange movies.
Okay.
And Krzysztof Kieślowski, something like that, a Polish director. Polish director wrote many movies, but one of them from Poland during even the Soviets was a phenomenal guy. And he directed a bunch of movies called the Decalogue, and it was based on each of the various laws. And this one was execution. Some horrible person strangles a taxi driver, and they focus on this, and it's a terrible thing to watch. He's brought to trial, and a death sentence was put, hanging. The last scene is the hanging, and the thing breaks. So they happen to have a bunch of people that to carry out the order start strangling the killer in order to put him to death. And obviously it was done purposely to show what is the difference between the man who committed the crime and now society doing the exact same thing for, quote, justice.
So, thank you. At the end of our lesson, if you read ahead, I have a couple of things about what we think about death penalty. But and doing that, I just broke my own rule by saying let's not bring everything modern as we're talking about the Torah. But we will get there. We will get there when we get to the other, after the blasphemer. Okay, so 24, 15, 16 are on my middle of the first page. Hotzei et ha-mikalel. Take the blasphemer outside the camp and let all who were within hearing, those are the witnesses, lay their hands upon his head. And let the community leadership stone him. Remember, how many people are in this community now? 600,000 or so. And to the Israelite people speak thus, God speaking to Moses, anyone who blasphemes God shall bear the guilt. We don't know what that is yet. So, who would like, where are we for the readers? We're going to read the Rashi, the first Rashi on the bottom of the page. Paul's passing over to Arthur. Thank you, Paul. Arthur, see where we are? All that hurt him.
They said to him, your blood is upon your head. We do not deserve punishment on account of your death, for it was you yourself who brought it upon.
Who brought it about. Okay. So that's going back to what Ian just saw. We're not guilty. We're going to stone you, but you did this to yourself. So we are not guilty. We are not guilty of this crime. This Rashi, Ian, goes against the movie you were telling about. When that movie asks the question, what's the difference between those killing the blasphemer or the blasphemer himself? So they say, Rashi says, they are not guilty. Now, go a little further. Arthur, pass the microphone, please. Thank you. So, all the congregation, Kol Ha'edah, shall certainly pelt him with stones. What is Rashi saying about that, Carol?
All the congregation shall certainly pelt him with stones. This means the witness shall stone him. All the congregation standing by, because it cannot possibly mean that all the 600,000 men comprising the whole of the congregation should stone him. From here, we may derive the legal principle that a man's agent is as himself, that his actions are legally of the same effect as though they were carried out by those for whom he acts the order.
Okay, so what does that mean? What's the legal principle? What's the legal, and you don't have to be one of the attorneys in the room to answer the question. What does that legal principle mean? Again, we're bringing in. What is that? What do you mean by January 6th? Okay. Well, what does that mean about responsibility? From here, we may derive the legal principle that a man's agent is as himself. So the commandment is all the congregation shall stone him, but all can't. So the leadership and or those who heard him shall be the one, and they're going to stand in for the whole congregation. So there's an idea of there can be an agent to take everybody's place. Because Rashi was concerned with the words, Rashi was concerned with Kol Ha'edah, right, Kol Ha'edah, the whole congregation. Yes, Eileen. Oh, hang on, I will bring it to you. No problem.
Just a little detail, I guess, but what happens if those among the 600,000, there are a few, or more than a few, that feel bad about it and don't agree with it? They're still culpable for what their leaders are doing?
Well, the answer is nobody's culpable. They are not culpable because they are fulfilling the punishment. They are not culpable. That's why the Rashi before, look at the Rashi before, says, no, it's on you. We're free from this.
In the military, when someone is put up for capital punishment, and they have 5 people with rifles, one of those rifles does not have a bullet, a live bullet. It's a blank. And the purpose of that is so that the people who shoot, who feel guilty about it, they may have shot a blank. We don't know. And that's one way of somehow making it easier on the executioners.
Okay, there's an answer.
There's another way to look at this. You know, in Simchas Torah, when someone parades around the Torahs and drops a Torah, the penalty is the whole congregation has to fast for a month. But if that were to happen, then all the congregants would say, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. He didn't drop that Torah. No one saw it. So the same thing applies here, that the blasphemy, the people who heard it are the ones who exercise the punishment. And if they don't think the punishment is appropriate, they could say, I didn't hear it. Did you hear that? No, I didn't hear that. So it's those who heard it have to then stone this person. They may feel that's not appropriate. So their out is, I didn't hear it. What did he say? He said something else. You misunderstood him.
Okay, so there could be, it could be the determination, even before the judgment, are the witnesses.
I'm just confused, I guess, because I personally feel that stoning someone to death for saying the name of God is awful and not appropriate.
What about stoning somebody for cursing their parents?
No, I think that's inappropriate and awful, and not appropriate. The crime doesn't, the punishment doesn't fit the crime in my opinion.
Okay.
But then I turn and say, yes, but in the Torah, God is saying that this is the punishment for it. So who am I to say that's not appropriate? But it's so inappropriate. I can't believe God said that.
Okay. So we can't believe God said that God would have a little more mercy. In this case, doesn't seem like there's mercy there. Okay, turn the page, everybody. Yes. Wait, hang on, Judy.
In this case, though, I think that this punishment is really a deterrent, and the punishment probably never really took place, or it was threatened. But if you have children and you threaten them with some ridiculously severe punishment, they're not going to do it. They may test and may come up to the line, but they're not going to cross it. And I think that this is probably one of those things, really not intended to be to carried out, but rather just to stop people from doing things.
Okay, maybe deterrent.
My grandfather, my opa, used to threaten me with makas behoris, so that I wouldn't do it. I was the firstborn.
Oh, okay.
So he threatened me with death.
With death of the firstborn from Pesach.
Yeah.
I can't believe you would have done anything that would demand such a threat. I used to threaten taking away. It had to do with puns. Oh, right. Definitely. Okay, so we've learned a little bit about the blasphemer. God makes a judgment. The punishment is stoning, but the responsibility, right? Responsibility are the witnesses. Witnesses and congregation. But it's not the whole congregation. We have agents. We have the witnesses and the leadership as the agents, because the whole congregation can't do it, because then it's a mob. Then it's January 6th. Okay, let's go now to our fun of, no worries, sound is good as well. Okay, she checked, I'll wait. Flip side over, and we are on the next part, a life for a life. A life for a life is in 3 sections of the Torah. It's in Leviticus that we've just read, it's in Exodus, and it's in Deuteronomy. 3 times we read this section or something very similar. And of course, it's in Fiddler on the Roof. Okay, we'll do that first. Turn to the very end. The last thing on the page, last thing on page 4. We'll start there. The villager says, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Who wants to play Tevye? Nancy, play Tevye.
Very good. That way the whole world will be blind and toothless.
Okay. Zechrono lefracha chayim topol. Okay, so that's fiddler. That's where we've come to. An eye for an eye, a tooth for tooth. Very good. That way the whole world will be blind and toothless. Let's see what our sages say. We're on the top of page 2. Just going to review the Torah text that we have just read. If any, we're at verse 24, verse 17 I have here, 18, 19, let's see what I have. If any party kills any human being, that person shall be put to death. Okay, so you kill, let's get the crime here. So you kill a person. That's my terrible handwriting. Kill a person, and what's the punishment? Death. Okay. It's a happy morning, isn't it? If any party names another person, what was done shall be done in return. So let's look at maims. And the punishment is maims so far. But it ain't necessarily so, as we will see from the rabbis. And Eileen, you'll feel much happier. Okay. Let's see. What are those examples of maiming? A fracture for a fracture, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The injury inflicted on a human being shall be inflicted in return. Okay. One who kills a beast. Okay, let's see. Here's another example. Kills a beast. And what's the payment? Shall make restitution for it, but one who kills a human being shall be put to death. So kills a beast, it's restitution. Now we sum it up. You shall have one standard for stranger and citizen alike. And where are these laws coming from? For I am Adonai, your God. So this judgment, and am I using the term judgment right here as the person who gives the punishment would be the judgment? Yeah. Okay. So we have here, according to this, we have God, 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 right? Everybody gets the same law. I am Adonai, your God. All right. Let's see. So that's what it says in Leviticus. We are at the Exodus part. Who wants to read the English where it says Exodus 21, 22 to 25? Where are we? Lynn, bavakasha.
When two or more parties fight, and one of them pushes a pregnant woman and a miscarriage results, but no other damage ensues, the one responsible shall be fined according as the woman's husband may exact, the payment to be based on reckoning.
Okay, so Exodus says, what happens in this case? Is it a maiming? It's not treated as a maiming, but it almost is, right? So this is a miscarriage. Here's another problem, and miscarriage. It's not, we're going to do the same to you. Miscarriage is also restitution. All right, so yes?
But this implies that the baby is not a human being yet.
Well, in Judaism, it's not, it is potential life until it's born. That's why we don't name. That's why traditionally we don't do baby showers before a baby is born, because until there's a baby, there's no baby. Eileen.
But
here.
I think that's not the issue here. The issue here is that it's manslaughter. It was an accident. It was an accident.
Okay. So the issue is not the life, the worth of the baby. Yep. It's more, well, it's not manslaughter because the baby's not considered a human being yet.
Well, an accident.
An accident, right. It's an accident. Okay.
That's two different things.
So an accident, so maybe an accident is restitution. Okay?
Restitution for the loss of
No, I think it's both.
Preborn baby is property.
So an accident is restitution so far. Yeah, I don't know, except maybe he called out God's name, an accident, that doesn't matter, but an accident, in this case, is restitution, and I think we're going to see that a lot, but we're not going to go too far into that.
But the one who determines the value is the husband. It's not the wife.
Correct.
Who actually miscarried the baby.
So the judgment on that part comes from, let's say, husband. Okay. Right. Okay. So we have a few differences. Let's go on.
But if other damage ensues, the penalty shall be life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise.
Okay, so in this Exodus portion following the miscarriage, if there's other damage, breaks an arm, then we're going to be the same, really the same as Leviticus. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. Gets a little bit more particular. Go to the top of page 3. But we're still all, in each example, pretty much on the same page with restitution is the same. We're going to do the same to you. Who's going to read Deuteronomy? Thank you.
And the magistrate shall make a thorough investigation. If the one who testified is a false witness, having testified falsely against a fellow Israelite, you shall do the one as the one schemed to do to the other. Thus, you will sweep out evil from your midst.
Okay, so now who is getting punished in this one? The one who did the false accusation. And there's a sort of an assumption here that this is not just a mistake, right? The one accusing is not just a mistake, that they thought they heard it or they saw it, but it's not a mistake. It is that they have planned. They specifically accused a person. Maliciously, thank you. Intentionally and maliciously. And so then, whatever they schemed, so if they were accusing a person of murder, then they will be under the death penalty. There's, intent, yeah, intent is part of the law, but this is going to be, the intention is exactly the same thing. Once we had a judge come to speak to Jeff, do you remember? High school kids. We had a juvenile judge come to speak to high school kids and talk about crime. And talked about if you are if you go into somebody's house to steal something and you are just there and somebody else dies from it, you are responsible. The kids are like, what? But we just went along. It's not the same, but this is intentional. Did you read the last verse, Lynn? Nor must you show
pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot.
Okay, so in these 3 places of Torah, Leviticus, Exodus, and Deuteronomy, have we seen a much different in the way that crime is handled? They're really basically all the same. Basically all the same. So let's see. We're going back now. Yes. Here, hang on.
Yeah.
Oh.
Aren't they talking more here about the intent, getting into more detail? For instance, like once they move into the land, they will have cities of refuge for people that have accidentally killed somebody or didn't intend to kill somebody.
So yes, the accidents, manslaughter, you're going to be protected. This is why I said the Torah right is revolutionary, because in many societies, even today, even an accidental death, there is revenge. So the Torah is stopping that idea of revenge, right? There's no, you're not going to take revenge. It has to follow according to the law. But still, we're all for life, tooth for tooth, We're at Tevye saying the whole world's going to be blind and toothless. Yes, the younger Eileen. Hi, love.
I wanted to make a comment on the thing about...
Just use the mic.
About the miscarriage and how come it's up to the husband to come up with the amount of money for restitution. And based on some things that I learned, but I would love to hear like your feedback on it too. But there's like a lot of examples throughout the Torah where men kind of need that more like physical reminder of things. Like a woman would spiritually be able to eventually heal from the miscarriage, but a man would kind of need like I don't know. It goes back to certain things like how like there's certain mitzvot that are for men but not necessarily for women, like the tefillin.
Right.
Like so that they have like that physical like reminder of God's love kind of thing.
So Eileen is speaking about, thank you, spent some little time with Chabad, I hear. Speaking about that the needs of women and men in mitzvot, and this is a these are mitzvot, right? These are laws that God's telling, may be different. Like a woman's on a different spiritual plane, they say. That's why we don't need to do certain mitzvot. Some, of course, has to do with time. Women are not required to do time-bound mitzvot. I think the man, the reason the husband sets the restitution is because, right, the wife doesn't have that many rights. She has rights, but it's a patriarchal society, and it's for him. But more than just that he needs the money to feel so he won't take revenge, which is part of it. It's also as a deterrent. If you are not careful and you're fighting and someone gets hurt, you have to pay. Hang on.
I think it's important to point out that this is all before the Sanhedrin. This is before a group of
We're gonna get there. Thank you.
Who are in charge of applying the laws of Exodus and Leviticus. And when you get to the Sanhedrin, which is 1,000 years or more later, they decide that before they will evoke capital punishment, it has to be unanimous. Or 70. Well,
no, not 70. You're jumping ahead, man. But not 70, but yes. Okay. So we are going to, I don't know if it's a shift, but it is a shift, and they're going to have reasons for it. Okay, so don't worry everybody, not everybody's going to be stoned to death. They'll be stopping. And we always know that whenever we have a child read the section of the Torah that says if they curse their parents or become wild and don't do what their parents want, they can be stoned. The rabbis later say, oh, this has never happened in Israel because our children are always that good. So that was just one of the deterrents. But let's look at the Rashi now on Leviticus 24:17. Oh, you had a question? Hang on.
I think it's more simple than that. In those days, wives were property of the husband. It's the husband's claim because it's his property that's been damaged. If she had her own rights, it would have been her claim against the person who caused the miscarriage.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to say she has no rights, because in Torah she has some rights, but she's not free economically, right? If she gets divorced, her husband dies, where does she go? Back to her father's house, right? She's not independent, she's not emancipated. Yeah, hang on.
And one of the reasons that it mentions in this parsha, repeating that if one kills a soul, the punishment is death, is to clarify what was earlier in the Torah, where it said if a man kills. So this way, even if a woman is killed, that the punishment is death. So it's trying to make it fair for the woman.
Okay, thank you. That is true, right? This parasha is including the woman's death. Now, this is already different from the very first murder in the Torah, which was Cain and Abel. Was Cain put to death? No. He wandered the earth, but he wasn't put to death, and that was clearly, that wasn't an accident. But let's see what Rashi has to say, these last few parts. We're on the Rashi, page 3, where it says, Leviticus 24:17, and he that killeth any man shall surely be put to death. Whose turn is it to read? Passing along. It's right there. Yes, because it said.
And he that killeth any man shall surely be put to death, because it is said, Exodus 21:12, whosoever smiteth a man so that he die shall surely be put to death. I might say that I have here only the law, that if one kills a man, he is punishable with death, whence, however, do I know that this is also the case if he kills a woman or a child? Because Scripture states here, and he that killeth any person, the soul of any human being.
Okay, so there we go. We have it here. It's man or woman. So that's new too. Newish.
But in Exodus, Moses kills the taskmaster.
And so what happens to Moses? So that may have been an accident, but if somebody gets in a fight and the result is death of another person, it might not be their intention, but Moses was not punished for that. Was it he was defending somebody else? Was that the reason? We don't yet have Torah given at that part, but certainly Moses here is a model for a defense. Nancy? Oh, good. Thank you.
However,
yes,
Moses flees for refuge. And as we learn later, if it's an accidental death, there are cities of refuge where the manslayer is allowed to go to until a certain period of time, usually till after the death of the high priest or everybody else is good. So I think that is like the forerunner of this later commandment. That it's sort of based on that. But the other thing is, as you just said, that the Torah had not been given yet. So we didn't have those laws for us to follow. But the other thing is that a lot of these are laws that are giving us guidelines so that we know what could happen. And if you enforce them in the beginning, people understand that there really are penalties for your actions. In that you can't slough them off. You can't only threaten. You have to exact them so people understand what the reality is.
Okay, thank you. So these sections of Torah as deterrents, as to shaping a society based on law, as ending maybe vigilantism. Let's see. So 24:19. Let's look what Ibn Ezra says. Whose turn? Ron, Bavakasha?
So shall it be done to him. Samson said, so have I done unto them.
The Gaon, Saja
The
Gaon.
Gaon brought proof from logic that breach for breach cannot be taken literally.
All right, so here's a change. We're not taking this stuff literally. Keep going.
The first wound was made unintentionally. How can we justify making a similar wound? If the wound is in a vital area, the person will die. The same applies to the eye. How are we to do the same to one who injured his neighbor by causing him to suffer the loss of a third of the sight of an eye? The words of tradition are thus true. Scripture is to be understood as follows. Ransom money is to be paid in all of these cases. It is fitting to remove his eye if he does not ransom it. Should one argue against us and say that what happens if the injurer is poor? Then we answer, Scripture speaks about the majority of cases. It is possible for the poor to become rich. This also answers those who argue, what shall we do in instances when the injurer of the eye is blind?
So Sadhya is giving some somewhat extreme examples to make his case. There's all of these maims now. Oh, I'm so happy I have two colors. Maims is going to go to restitution. Maims going to restitution. And his reason is, well, we never really know the extent of the wound. Now, my daughter, who's just a recent attorney, practices plaintiff law. So she sits all day and tries to figure out what what the injuries are. So Sajid going saying, you can't really do it. Maybe he injured only a third of the person's eye. Well, how do we know how to injure a third? How do we know? So that's not what Scripture means. And what happens if the guy who takes another person, who injures somebody else, somebody's eye is already blind? Then you can't take out his eyes. He's already blind, which is his extreme sort of tongue-in-cheek kind of example. But we're moving now to restitution. Okay, let's look again at Rashi on 24:20. And let's review, where did I put the verse? Let's review what 24:20 says. 24:20 says, fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The injury he inflicted on another shall be inflicted on him. Now, okay, is Rashi agreeing with Sajja Gaon, or what's going on here? Who is reading? Ian, Bavakasha. Bottom of page 3.
Where?
Rashi on Leviticus.
Rabbis explained that this does not mean the actual infliction of a blemish, but that it means monetary compensation. That we estimate the injured man's value as a slave, and the offender has to pay the difference between his value as an unmaimed man and that which he represents after the infliction of the injury. It is for this reason that the term
to give
is written here, referring to something that is given, passed from hand to hand.
So Rashi's right. So Rashi's saying, from verse 20, if we go back to the Hebrew, shever tachat shever, ayin tachat ayin, shen tachat shen, ka'asher yiten. So he's using that word give. If you're saying give, you're not giving somebody that same injury. You are giving them money. So he's using that one word to talk about giving money. Ian, yes.
I remember reading something years ago which was very strange. It was either in India or Pakistan where a man threw acid at a woman. And the judgment was that he would receive the same injury. And under anesthesia, they replicated that area and they put acid on it.
Wow.
To leave him with a blemish.
Wow.
And it was strange because I've never seen, and they didn't want to do unusual punishment for paying, it would be replicated.
Thank you, interesting. So turn to page 4. We're moving on now to the understanding of how come it's restitution. What do we do with the death penalty? Oh, I didn't put the modern death penalty in. Talmud from Bava Kama 84a. Who is reading? Judy, thank you.
The Gemara presents another derivation. It is taught in another
Baraita
that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says an eye for an eye, Leviticus 24:20, is referring to monetary restitution. Do you say that this is referring to monetary restitution, or is it only teaching that the one who caused the injury must lose an actual eye? There may be a case when there was a blind person and he blinded another, or there was one with a severed limb and he severed the limb of another, or there was a lame person and he caused another to be lame. In this case, how can I fulfill an eye for an eye, literally, when he is already lacking the limb that must be injured. If one will suggest that in that case a monetary penalty will be imposed, that can be refuted. But the Torah stated, "You shall have one manner of law," Leviticus 24:22, which teaches that the law shall be equal for all of you.
Thank you. So you can't, just because of the cases where there may be an injured person injuring somebody else, and therefore you cannot exact the punishment of breaking his arm because it's already broken. And if you can't enact that punishment on him for a crime of breaking an arm, how can you break somebody else? How can you change the punishment for somebody else? Therefore, we follow the cases of you can't break somebody's arm if it's already broken. Okay, maybe you can, doctors. So we're going to use money for restitution instead of eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Get it? Just in case. All right.
What if he's poor?
What if he's poor? If he's poor, that's the exception, Rav Gaon said, and we'll deal with it. Well, I guess he has to borrow the money or maybe go into indentured servantry to get it. Probably that. Yeah, he'll have to sell himself out. Okay, the Mishnah Makot. Now we're getting up to the Sanhedrin. Whose turn is it? Oh, perfect.
It all comes around.
It all comes around.
Said one, the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court, that puts to death one person in 7 years is turned tyrannical. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says 1 person in 70 years. Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva say, if we had been in the Sanhedrin, no one would have ever been put to death. Rabbi Simeon ben Gamliel says, in adopting that approach, they would have thereby increased the shedders of blood in Israel.
So who's right? We understand that from the Sanhedrin, we are going to really look at this stuff. Except restitution we'll keep. We're probably not going to go there. But if we go too far and get rid of all of our deterrents, what does Simeon ben Gamliel say? What? You're going to let lawlessness come in the land. You're going to let more people go who will shed blood. And that, of course, is where we stand today, except that we know the Reform movement and liberal Judaism opposes capital punishment, like the Sanhedrin in most cases. Like the state of Israel, even today, there are 2 people that were put to death in Israel. Of course, it was Eichmann, and one, I just forgot his name. It's the very Polish name that a Jew from the, I think it was the Haganah, or probably the Irgun, and he was posthumously, corrected that death. So basically, we've gone with the way of the Sanhedrin. And of course, we always know the truth from Shalom Aleichem and Tevye. The whole world will be blind and toothless. There must be other ways. So that's our discussion today on punishment in the Torah, the blasphemer, and the eye for the eye. And why is this so important is that so many times, well, maybe so many is the wrong word, but there are times when other people talk about our Torah, which they would refer to as the Old Testament, they will say, look what's in your Torah. It's an eye for an eye, not turn the cheek. But now we know that the Torah is not really eye for eye. It's not turn the cheek either, of course, but there are other ways. Jeff.
So just to leave on a lighter note, the whole morning I kept thinking about another great movie, maybe not as great as Kozlowski, but The Life of Monty Python and The Life of Brian, where the guy says, Rosenberg knows this, where the guy says, this fish is good enough for Jehovah, and they start yelling at him, blasphemer, blasphemer, you're taking the Lord's name in vain, and they start stoning him. So he said, all I said was this fish was good enough for Jehovah. He keeps repeating it over and over again.
Thank you, Jeff. That's That's great. Also, another recommendation on the flight home from Israel, I watched again, maybe for the, 10th time, everything is illuminated. And now, of course, it's supposed to take place in Ukraine, and now with the war in Ukraine, it's even more poignant. So watch it carefully with nuance, and it's just filled with so many interesting things.
They changed the death penalty in Florida too. Now you only need 8 out of 12 on juries
Right.
to convict to put somebody.
And what was it before?
Well, unanimous.
Unanimous, and now we're
Most
on.
states are unanimous.
So we're the lowest now. You know, we have some issues going on here, but we can stand behind Torah and say what is right and what is just. That's our goal for justice. Thank you, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Sorry. Yes.
So, you know,